Now we're back. Yeah, also folks in Malaysia, Singapore, also, especially the people who still are working. This is also the time change makes it a little difficult for them. Let's let things, continue for another week or two. Then we see possible for us to start an hour earlier. No problem, Then everybody can, participate. Or shoot themselves, It's a choice we make. So. Statement 6 in chapter 4, especially the commentary, really kind of lays out or teases out some of the, I think, core issues that we're talking about here. So let's look at this statement carefully. There is no permission for a, quote, non-virtue that does not become a fault. So I think this translation of permission and prohibition, it's good, but there are some limitations to that. Personally, I prefer a set of terms more related to how doctors prescribe and proscribe. To me, I'm not saying that, if that prescribe and proscribe matches the Tibetan better. I'm no authority on Tibetan language. But I do feel that the use of prescribe and proscribe reflects very closely to how we should understand the Buddha's role and the Buddha's teachings, how they are meant to be applied. The language of permission and prohibition is fundamentally a vocabulary from a more legalistic standpoint. The law permits, the law prohibits. But doctors don't permit or prohibit. Doctors prescribe or proscribe. Doctors say, this is good, This, on the other hand, will be harmful to you. Prescribe and proscribe. So this is translation, So here, if we were to translate this statement, or interpret, let's put it. Translate, maybe you need to be very exact with all the, from the original language to this language, But a restating of this statement will be, you will not find Buddha prescribing anything based on the idea that there are some non-virtues that do not have faults. In other words, if it is non-virtue, by definition is a fault. If there is a fault with some type of action, it's because, for no other reason than it is non-virtue. It's not virtuous. So whereas others, would classify actions according to, is it a fault? Is it a non-virtue? Is it a transgression? Is it a downfall? These are different vocabulary that you're going to find in different Buddhist texts, whether sutras or tantras. Tantras, you're going to hear something that the language, the translation would be a downfall. Then, in other types of texts, you're going to find the language of, the vocabulary of a non-virtue, yeah, or a fault, or a transgression. So when others look at this, then they will classify things very kind of neatly and strictly and say, oh, in the individual liberation vows, you can separate things into, naturally non-virtuous, or a transgression. Yeah? Meaning there are some rules in there where they're not inherently negative. Buddha just put them there as a prevention, for prevention. So the most commonly used example is consuming intoxicants. They say, well, it's not, drinking itself is not a problem. Drinking intoxicants, it's not a problem. It's to prevent you from becoming intoxicated, and then in the state of intoxication, then create the other non-virtues. So they would divide it that way. So in that sense, right, it's one thing or the other and not both. Oh, it's a fault. Oh, it's a non-virtue, Or some actions are both fault and non-virtuous. Some actions, they're non-virtuous, but they're not a fault. And then in some cases, oh, these are faults, but then they are not non-virtuous. For Kyoba Rinpoche, he said, no. He's not denying that kind of language doesn't exist, but he's saying that you're getting caught up in being a Buddhist lawyer. You're arguing on technicality to get your client off the hook. In this case, yourself, your ego as the client. You're making arguments on your case based on technicality. Oh, he wasn't read his rights when he was arrested, and so the things that he said cannot be used against him. And then Kyoba Rinpoche said, now you are, going to the karmic court and trying to make a case by arguing technicality. Karma doesn't work like that. Yeah. Now, this statement here, actually it's saying more than that. In the commentary, it will unpack. But this is the basis of what we're talking about here. Okay, so the counterpoint here, Chodra provides us, people claim that non-virtuous deeds are permitted to the great bodhisattvas because they will become virtuous. How? Through the bodhisattva's pure intention. So this is based on that idea that, the ends justifies the means, as we would say in English. So the end is virtuous. The bodhisattva wants to save all beings. And therefore his action of even killing will turn into a virtue by virtue of his great motivation. Kyoba Rinpoche say, hold on. You are getting confused here. Now, I can give you a immediate kind of preview of what is to come. Mind you, he's not saying, don't do it. Like the famous story of the captain of the merchant ship, where the captain finds out that someone is going to kill everyone, and everyone on the ship are actually bodhisattva level. So the negativity of killing bodhisattvas is so heavy for this would-be murderer. So the captain saw no other means but to have to kill this would-be murderer. Yeah. So Kyoba Rinpoche is not saying, he should not have done it. He's not saying that. But he's also saying, but just because, yes, he should have done it, should not lead you to think that karma works in such a way where something that is non-virtuous becomes virtuous because of a great bodhisattva's motivation has changed the nature of killing. Kyoba Rinpoche said, no, the nature of killing is always non-virtuous. Let's look at the commentary. Such non-virtuous acts of body and speech, which are cause and result, the dependent origination, that is the fundamental nature. Yeah, so that's the definition. Like what are we talking about when we say karma vipaka, cause and result? None other than the dependent origination, which is the fundamental nature of everything. So such non-virtuous acts of body and speech are not allowed as something that would be without fault. So in particular here is there's 7 out of the 10 non-virtues, 3 of the body, 4 of the speech. He says all these 7. There is no case where you can say that there are no faults when you create any of these 7 types. 3 of the body, 4 of the speech. Now, for a bodhisattva who, relinquishing his own happiness for the benefit of others, is able to bear the suffering that is the ripening of evil, such a non-virtuous deed as those 7, 3 of the body, 4 of the speech, is not proscribed. So he's saying, actually, the Buddha did, in other words, prescribe that if you are a bodhisattva and you really can look beyond your own happiness and for the sake of others, like truly, if you can, then those 7 non-virtuous actions of body and speech, I would say, as in pretending I'm Buddha, I would say, yes, you can do it, okay? If the occasion calls for it. However, do know that there are negative consequences as well. In other words, are you ready? Are you strong enough to bear the negative consequences? Altruism, right? Thinking and acting on behalf of others is cheap and easy if it comes with the get out of jail pass, right? Oh, go ahead and do it, because I will give, a presidential pardon. Then it's a no-brainer. Oh, well, I will be, pardoned. Here, Gilbert Rinpoche's intention is to say, Don't hope for karmic pardon. You have to be strong and brave enough to bear your personal suffering for the sake of others. If you're ready, he wouldn't advocate, like idiot compassion, meaning when you're not ready to handle the heat in the kitchen, then he says, then don't go into the kitchen. But if you are going to be Buddha one of these days, there will come a time where you have to enter into the heat of the kitchen. Next line. Such activities are non-virtuous, as in those 7. What about the other 3? That, put aside, because the other 3 pertains to anger, right? Coveting, and wrong views. Those 3, never. Buddha, even in these circumstances, right? It makes no sense to say, for the sake of others, become hateful. For the sake of others, become greedy. For the sake of others, have wrong views. Not possible. But the other 7, yes, maybe for the sake of others, you have to use deceptive speech. So here, quickly, Chodra says, such activities, as in those 7 that we're talking about now, they are non-virtuous in that they necessarily engage the afflictions of the 3 poisons. So the last 3 is directly about the 3 poisons, and therefore the 3 poisons are never prescribed by the Buddha. The Buddha never says, the 3 poisons are okay. But here, here Chodra is saying, these 7 non-virtues of body and speech, why they are non-virtuous is because they implicate the 3 poisons. So by their nature, they are non-virtuous. Don't forget that, he says. Yeah. First, you have to understand that. Then the question arises, in the context of bodhisattva practice, how then do we proceed? Even though they may be pervaded by the means that have the natural characteristic of emptiness and compassion, here means is talking about skillful means. Okay? So even though these 7 non-virtues may be pervaded by the skillful means that have the natural characteristic of emptiness and compassion, so even if it is based on bodhicitta, a bodhisattva does not carry out such deeds because they think that therefore there is no fault. Therefore there is no problem. Yeah, he says a bodhisattva does not do that on that basis. Not that a bodhisattva will not, under dire circumstances, do any of these 7, but they will not do it with the thinking that, oh, there's no fault. You follow so far? Yeah. Although he will experience, so although the bodhisattva will experience the result of such non-virtuous activity, since the Mahabodhisattva, the great bodhisattvas, has abandoned the self and diligently benefits others. I don't know why the self is capitalized here. Some maybe typo. Has abandoned the self and diligently benefits others and is able to carry out the conduct of a bodhisattva. This is the key. Possessing the armor of patient endurance. That means, even if I burn in hell for 10,000 lifetimes, it's okay. That is the armor of patient endurance. So when you look at that, it's like, oh, I guess not, Even just the last 4 years, far from any hell realm, I could barely least, tweet, Tweet is how many words, Even less than 146 words, It's all triggered, And then thinking, for the sake of being, so I'm really upset, No bodhisattva armor. Is able to carry out the conduct of a bodhisattva because of the armor of patient endurance. It is permitted for him. It is prescribed for him. But it is not prescribed for a novice bodhisattva. As in the Buddha says, if you don't have that kind of strength, that kind of endurance, you better not get near these 7 non-virtues. With a 10-foot pole, 1,000-foot pole, billion-foot pole, don't even get near it. Because you don't have the ability. Even a paper cut, no ability to really endure. Then the hell realms, definitely no ability. So then he quotes Pamodrupa. For the Mahabodhisattva who performs great deeds for the benefit of others and dwells on the stages and paths, the 7 non-virtuous activities of body and speech are prescribed, are permitted, Here, permitted may be better than prescribed. Yeah, it's translation not so easy. As in, Buddha is not necessarily actively saying, do it, do it, do it. Prescribed might sound like that. Permit is just saying, yeah, it's, given this circumstance, yeah, you can, But then don't think, Daddy Buddha, Daddy God, or Mommy God, is going to say, oh, you did it for a good reason. Good girl, good boy, you're forgiven. Buddha says, don't think like that, No one has the power to do that for us.
So is the idea that a more senior bodhisattva will be able to tolerate the suffering that comes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, more advanced, more developed beings have the power to tolerate the suffering that probably will come.
Dr. Lai?
Yes.
In the legend about the father lying to the children about toys.
Yes.
To get them out of the house.
Yes.
And save
That's in
them.
the Lotus Sutra, yes.
Yeah. So the teaching here would say that it is still not a virtue to lie, although the father is permitted such action.
Yes.
Because the intention is quite pure.
Yes.
And the visible negative karma from telling the lie about the toys. Yes. Is bearable.
Yes. Bearable for the father in that
instance. Yes. In that instance.
Yes.
Well, to me, this teaching is actually quite logical.
Yes.
For example, the captain,
yeah,
who saved the shipload of people,
yes,
by killing the murderer,
mm-hmm,
he incurred negative karma with the murder. There's no getting around that.
Yes.
But the solution is in skillful means. If the captain had been more skillful,
mm-hmm,
he would have been able to deter the murderer without killing him.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, tie him up or whatever, but the story don't give us that option. Yeah. Of course, one minor differentiation to make in the two cases here is like, in the story in the Lotus Sutra, it's deliberately, the Buddha actually says, this is a parable. In the case of the Captain Compassion, at least from within the tradition, it's not a parable. It says this is actually what, Buddha Shakyamuni in the past life, before he was Shakyamuni, had to do or did. Yeah, maybe for us they're all parables, but the internal logic of that is that. So interestingly, they never. So therefore, not surprisingly, they never in these commentaries, as far as I know, use the example that you just used of the father, because they would say that's deliberately used as a parable, whereas these stories of the past lives of the Buddha, they are actually decisions that Shakyamuni on the level of Bodhisattva made or had to make. Yeah, and just a minor point here.
Yes, but I also think when we're facing decisions and we're tempted to do things which are non-virtuous, it's also a warning that we really need to exhaust all possible
absolutely.
alternatives.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, exactly, and not so quickly, because the ego can quickly bring out altruism as the answer. It's so easy. Yeah? Oh, for a bigger sake, I know this, not everybody will agree and we will not argue, but I'll use one example, this whole mask business, coronavirus mask, somebody thought they were engaging in skillful lying at the early start of this pandemic in the US. And someone at CDC say, no, the mask will not protect you, because they were afraid, apparently. Yeah, I don't want to get into all the conspiracies, but at least based on what they would admit and say, right? They say, oh, that's because, we don't have enough, N95. And if we tell people that will, then the people who need it the most will not have it, all of that. So then they kept denying, and they even say, oh, no, it's not going to help you. It's not going to protect you. So they thought they were engaging in skillful lying for the greater benefit. But here we are. You have already lost so many people who, for other reasons, this becomes, right, a reason to say, oh, see, who are we to believe? First you said this, now you said this, So it's easy, it's very easy when we are under pressure to find the easy way out. Yes, so as Larry, you're saying, this teaching here is really saying, like, be very careful. Be very careful. Then the other thing, and as we continue the commentary, we'll see this. I also say, like in the story of Captain Compassion, right, the example of what Shakyamuni did in the past life, I said that if Captain Compassion did not do that, right, and instead he said, I cannot bear the suffering of being born in the hell realms for killing this person, and then he stands back, so to say. He doesn't intervene, right? From the karmic standpoint, he is not responsible for the death of these 500. I know. For some of us, we're like, but no, he's responsible, right? Not acting is a form of acting. No. Karma doesn't work like that, okay? I mean, it might be good in the world that we have that idea, like not acting to prevent evil is an evil. I agree. That's a good way to live. But karmically, karma is intention, right? Your intention is not for the 500 to be killed when you don't want to kill this person. No, your intention there is just, I don't have the ability to kill this person. Forget about even the hell realms. you know. I think for me, if you ask me in this situation, kill this person or let 500 die, I will admit to you today, right now, I don't have the guts to kill this person. I just don't, you know. Karmically, right? I'm not responsible that this person end up killing the 500. But it also means, you know, I will probably not achieve the state of Buddha so soon. Because self-cherishing is still stronger. I don't have the guts, or I'm afraid of the karma, whatever, you know, that's all about self-cherishing. But Captain Compassion, yeah, had the guts on both levels. The nerve enough to kill another person and to endure the karma of that. The commentary will talk about this, but they use another case, I think. We'll see. I don't remember the details, but they use another case, but you can see how this principle works. Thus, such activities are permitted for the bodhisattva who is able to patiently endure suffering and who has reached the required stages and paths of the bodhisattva stages and paths. And therefore, the Maharahasyopa Kausaya says, the Bodhisattva king Sokchen Rapchok spoke to the Buddha, exalted one, to cultivate the root of virtue in the mental continuum of a single being. Such wrongdoings can occur for the bodhisattvas. It is easy for them to dwell for 100,000 eons in the great hell of beings due to the arising of that fault. So we don't know, you know, what exact action this bodhisattva is saying, but what this bodhisattva is saying, that in order to result in the root of virtue arising in even a single being, wrongdoings, bodhisattvas, the real strong bodhisattvas, you know, they will do it, you know, even if it results in 100,000 eons in the great hell, because they have, right? Their love and compassion is so strong that they are able to endure. However, to give up the root of virtue of a single sentient being is not like that. Thus the exalted one replied, that is right. So Chodra explained, yeah. Further elaborates, yeah. Because the great merciful captain, so now Captain Compassion, killed the assassin as taught in the story of the Buddha's former lives, he experienced the hell realms for many thousand years. Finally, the Buddha experienced many things, such as having his foot pierced by the acacia thorn, meaning in the life as Buddha Shakyamuni. So even after he, you know, Buddha is Buddha, he still suffered, you know, physical injury in his life. They say that this is all the residual karma of non-virtuous acts that he knowingly engaged in for the sake of others. King Kanakavarana, however, did not become a thief. So this is now talking about another story. Instead, since he was born as a powerful lord through his aspiration prayer to become lord of a great land with a retinue of subjects, he protected everyone equally, including himself. Moreover, apart from that, since he was free from selfish desires, he collected food and wealth for the benefit of these beings, and thus his conduct was in all respects skilled in the means of benefiting others. So here, this case is slightly different. Here, the example given is slightly different from the Captain Compassion. In Captain Compassion, definitely there is non-virtue. But in the case of Kanakavarna, there is no non-virtue. This is interesting that Chodat suddenly introduces this here. So the basic story of Kanakavarna is that first, before that lifetime as a king, he made aspiration prayers. He said, I can see the benefit of being a leader of people, being a king. So let this good karma I've created now result in me becoming a great king, so that I can benefit all those subjects of mine. So eventually this aspiration bore fruit, and he became this king. Then as a king, through, I don't know the details of this story, but he basically could foretell there is going to be difficult times for his country because of weather or, disease, and so food will become scarce. So then what he did was he basically taxed his citizen. So like some people think of taxing as stealing, government stealing from me, the king did that. He forcibly took, right? But in this forcibly taking, so to say, in the form of heavy taxation, there is no desire at all, because he's not taking it for himself. So when he was doing that, probably everyone accused him of being an evil king, overtaxing us and this and that. But the whole time he knew a famine is coming, a famine is coming, a famine is coming. Then when the famine actually came, then he was able to distribute food in a way that lasted beyond the famine. So nobody died. So in that case, there is not even a fault there. So this is giving another layer to say, what we see with our own eyes is not totally what we are able to see. So at one point when the king was doing this, everyone criticized and say, he is greedy. But the king himself knew exactly what he was doing.
He's also probably got accused of being a socialist.
Yes. These days, he'll be a socialist. Back in those days, no, it was just, evil king, right? Furthermore, the son of a Brahmin named Jyotis. So this is another story, okay? And another nuance. So the son of Brahmin named Jyotis reduced his stay in samsara. So reduce his stay in samsara. Okay, this is a really convoluted way of saying speed up his advance to Buddhahood. But how did he do that? By giving up celibacy for 12 years for the benefit of a female Brahmin. Okay, what this is talking about is, so there's another case of another individual that, okay, first of all, in this story, people live for a long, long time. Not like our maximum 100 years. People are living for thousands and thousands of years. So it is said that there's this one practitioner called Jyotis, practice no desire, relinquishing desire, right? And the most powerful of desires, in this case, sexual desire. So he practiced chastity, celibacy for like thousands and thousands of years. Then a scenario came up where this one girl, was so desirous of him that she threatened to kill herself if he doesn't give in. And so the story goes, he prevented one time from her killing herself, second time, third time. Finally, he understood that he had to give up his practice of celibacy to be with her. And so then they became sexually involved for 12 years. I don't know, again, the ins and outs of the story. Probably then through the 12 years, he was able to show her, right, the downfalls of desire. Then they both go back to, or he went back to his vows and she took ordination. And so it's that, it said that there, right? He actually made great progress. Yeah, and made great progress there. So if you conclude from this that the result of such non-virtuous activity did not arise, we reply, okay, here. Before the 12 years, he dwelt for 20,000 years in celibacy. And when he then made the water bearer his wife for 12 years, he thought, destroying my discipline, I will fall into the hell realms of beings, but I will bear that suffering. However, I am causing the happiness of this woman who would otherwise die. Unquote. Thus, he associated with her for 12 years. After that, he again took up celibacy, cultivated the 4 Brahma Viharas, the 4 immeasurable minds, and was reborn in the Brahma worlds after death. Thus, as explained before, a faultless non-virtuous deed is not permitted. As in, there's no such thing as a faultless non-virtuous deed. The words of the story clarify that even though a fault for oneself arises, one wears the armor of patient endurance for the sake of the happiness of others. Furthermore, the story is an excellent clarification of some Vajra statements of the Vinaya chapter, such as the one according to which not obtaining vows is a greater fault than their deterioration. So meaning the attitude of, I don't want to take the vows because, I might break it. So he says, in that case, you're saying, ignorance is less of a problem than the other non-virtues. Says, no, ignorance is the greatest problem. So here also, ignorance here in this case would be ignorance with self-grasping. So if Captain Compassion had, stronger self-grasping, even though karmically he would be blameless in that situation, right? But in terms of his spiritual growth, his giving up of self-grasping, it would be a setback. If he stood by and did nothing, maybe he's like, I have a boat, I have a little boat on this ship, I'm going to escape, row away, and then just let them, sort this out himself. It's not my karma, it's their karma. It says, in that case, he won't be born in a hell realm after that life. But he would have set himself, or not so much set himself backwards, no, but he would not make any progress. Got it? There's still a lot, to be kind of understood. Still, like Khenchen Rinpoche said, he said, I just get a little bit of what Gongchik is saying. Is anyone alive today, in terms of studying the Gongchik is Khenchen Rinpoche. And he, not just mouth humble, but really he's saying, the profundity of the Gongchik, he said, I just have the surface. Because the real meaning arises through experience. Yeah. Now we're just like logically trying to understand. The real test comes from when it arises from our experience. Yeah.
Dr. Lai, back to the example of the monk who gave up celibacy for a second.
Yeah.
The monk gave in to sexual desire, but neither party belonged legally or otherwise to anybody else. Is that the case?
Yes.
So the transgression was basically to give in to sexual desire.
Yes.
But the moral issue of having an immoral sexual relationship with someone who's committed to
that is
someone
something else. Yes.
That's different. Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
that's something else. Right.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Like, the discussions of that would be like, someone who basically don't have the agency to agree to it, then that's heavier negative karma. The language of belonging to someone, and basically
Right.
it's a matter of, do they have agency to agree or disagree to what is being done.
Yep.
Then from there you can go all the way to rape.
Right.
The principle is, do the person has agency to agree or not? Yeah. That's a different, Here it's about very subtle things. It's about not even acting out, but on the layer of like our habit patterns.
I have a question that relates to what's written at the bottom of 314. It says, such activities are non-virtuous in that they necessarily engage the afflictions of the three poisons.
Yes.
Seems to me that ignorance is not present with these great bodhisattvas who are making these decisions. Is it?
Yes. Or not that they're not present, but very minimal.
Okay, so for us, ignorance is
strong,
but
yes, yeah.
But also they must have some attraction or attachment to doing the correct thing or benefiting the greater good or whatever. So on some level,
that kind of attachment is not a problem.
Right, but it is attachment, is it not?
Yeah, but that kind of problem is not an attachment. In other places, I've always said, it's not exactly the right view to think. Buddha says all attachments are bad. It's skillfully choosing,
And without ignorance.
Yes, skillfully choosing,
Okay.
The state of Buddha is beyond all attachments. But you don't get to the state of Buddha by abandoning attachment wholesale. You begin by choosing what to be attached to and what not to be attached to. Yes.
Okay.
So not of course among our stellar company here, but in other places I have people saying to me, I think I'm getting too attached to my practice, and I really have to control myself not to laugh in their face. I don't think so. Oh, they're so concerned, I think I've become so attached to my practice. Like, no, this is the least of our problems. It's a good attachment to have. You have attached to your practice. Yeah. First arrive there, then if there are any problems, I will tell you what to do then. Sovich's notes are very helpful. Yeah, and then he also quotes from the Dorshema and the Rinjangma. Yeah, Yeah, so there's the notion, there's even the vocabulary of overpowering or outshining. The notion that the bodhisattvas can overpower or outshine non-virtue through their pure motivation. So there's that. So Rinjangma and Dorshema even quote, like Bodhisattva Chayavatara, Bodhisattva Samvara. So especially these Mahayana texts that praises, the power of bodhicitta. If you misread them, it might sound like, somehow bodhicitta can kind of turn the workings of karma upside down. So Kyoba Rinpoche is saying, no, it's poetic language. when the Mahayana text praise, how amazing, how strong, how transformative bodhicitta is. However, don't develop the wrong view that somehow bodhicitta can turn killing into a virtue. And this is especially important when we get into Vajrayana, where then you have these wrathful deities, right, with all their weapons and not only weapon, blood and gore on the one side, right, and then sex, drugs, and rock and roll on the other side. Yeah, and so once you get over there, if you don't have this understanding clearly here, you have a completely perverted view of what's going on the Vajrayana. I mean, look at the deities, it's like, But unfortunately, I think a lot of people get attracted to those deities completely due to afflictive emotions. Yeah, so we will end here today. Then the next on Wednesday, we're going to look at actually some of the notes, not in detail, but some of the notes provided by the translator. Again and again, I think he has done such a wonderful job with this volume. Then we will look at 4.7. 4.7 is a further kind of elaboration of 4.6. So it's really dealing with this issue of skillful means. So what do we mean when we say skillful means? Because again, it's so easy to pervert the meaning of skillful means. So again, it gets even more slippery in Vajrayana. So people who practice like wrathful deities, then they go around, and they say, oh, that's wrathful, oh, no, that's not, that's just samsaric poison. Yeah, 4.7. Then 4.8 is a practical application of. We see how these statements often, after making a few statements that seem to take us in the direction, on one direction, then a statement will come after that to also pull us back a little bit and say, but then don't overextend what is being said here. So 4.8 actually is quite provocative. But I think that has also led some misunderstanding. People think 4.8, people as in Drigong people, think 4.8 is an advice not to practice Tonglen. But it's not saying don't practice Tonglen, which of course in the popular use of Tonglen, most people have never heard of, why not to practice Tonglen. Yeah? But for Drigong peoples who know this statement, they'll say, see, Kyopo Rinpoche say, oh, don't learn, don't practice, it's dangerous. It doesn't mean that. But it's related to that. So it says, there are cases in which the practice of Tonglen can become a fault. Yeah? So there, as much as it's also saying, bodhisattvas need great courage to take on suffering. Even with regards to seeing clearly those 7 are non-virtues, and if I commit them, if I do them, negative consequences will come to me personally. But for the sake of others, I need to develop strength, the armor of patient endurance, and then do those 7, right? But then now, statement 4.8 is saying, don't be too quick. Don't overestimate your power, your ability. And don't take lightly the idea of, oh, I can just breathe in everyone's suffering. I can breathe in everyone's pain. I can breathe in. It will sink you prematurely. Don't underestimate the power of thought, right? And think, oh, this is just, imagining. Oh, well, if you imagine strong enough, those karmic conditions will ripen. Because we have a lot of negative karma, in our karmic account. So if you start to collect the conditions for them to ripen, they will ripen. And if they ripen and you're not ready to handle them, you might get derailed. So that's what 4.8 is saying. But before we get to 4.8, 4.6, 4.7, we need to really appreciate that. Then 4.8 becomes, then we can understand 4.8 properly. I think it's also maybe a mistake, to just superficially say, oh, Kyopo Rinpoche said, don't practice Tonglen, don't practice Tonglen. No, he's not saying that. Yeah. Yeah, so Chanchu Semchu Rinpoche Ma Ge Ba Nam Ge Gyurche Ge Ba Nyam Ba Me Ba Yang Gong Ne Gong Du Bel War Shou. Just a reminder, so tomorrow is the 4th session of the 3 principal aspects of the path, where we begin the emptiness section. Probably originally this series is scheduled for 4 classes. I think it'll probably take 5 classes because the emptiness chapter is not so easy to, or the emptiness aspect is not so easy to explain. So it's Tuesday, tomorrow evening. I will send the Zoom information to the WhatsApp for those of you who want to join us on Zoom. Then otherwise, I will see you on Wednesday. And yeah, ta-ta.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you.